My next guest has worked with professional athletes, including bodybuilders, soccer players, baseball players, PGA golfers, and football players. He's a personal trainer from Austin, Texas, Andy Bruchey. Welcome to Radio for Small Business.
Thanks very much for having me, Eugene. My pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about your background. I know when it comes to the physical fitness industry, one of the first things people like to know is, one, your background, two, your certifications and things like that.
Okay. Well, I'm 46 years old, so I'm not a rookie. So I've always been fascinated with how things work since I've been a little guy. And one day, I guess it was around early mid-high school, I just started tinkering around with some weights. I was a very small kid. I was very undersized. I was 14 years old. I was 66 pounds at about 4'10". And I was a little guy. And I wasn't too much into eating. And I grew up in New York City. And so pretty much pizza and soda is what I grew up on whenever I could sneak it. And anyway, I started noticing immediate and almost drastic changes as soon as I started tinkering with these weights. And I found it fascinating. And it just kept a progression going. And just one thing led to another. And as I got older, I was really seeing differences. And I realized that I was making sculptures. You know, whatever I felt like doing. If I wanted bigger arms, I wanted smaller this or that, I was able to do it. And I started learning and just basically being a sponge for any kind of knowledge I could accumulate. And this, of course, it's nutrition, it's all kinds of, like, the anatomy. And I just really went in depth. And before I know it, I'm reading medical journals and things like that, and decided this is really fun.
Wow.
And I like people. I'm a people guy, so I thought this would be a great way I could help other people as well.
Cool. So let's go back to 14. In a nutshell. Let's go back to 14 because most people don't think about starting a business, and you probably didn't when you were 14, but you took a childhood passion and it evolved into business. What was the point where you decided to say, hey, I think I can do this and, be good at it?
Yeah. Well, when I was 14, obviously I wasn't thinking about a business or anything. And the reason I ended up in a business situation was because when I decided to be a trainer and I looked around, of course, I'd been in a lot of gyms. I'd seen a lot of trainers and quote-unquote trainers. And, I just aspired to do something a little different. And it wasn't about jumping up and down and saying, yes, you can do 3 sets of 10 and then flexing my muscles for you and spelling off my personal problems or, any of that stereotypical nonsense. It was, the stuff we see on TV or on YouTube. It was more, I thought, well, I think I could do this better. So I decided to be an independent trainer. So I didn't work for a gym. I never have. And when I was at other gyms, I just realized that I wasn't happy with how people were being treated. I wasn't happy with just various components of it. And I thought I could do this better. And so
Gotcha.
Close to 8 years ago, I decided I'm just going to go ahead and make myself a gym.
So 8 years ago, you decided definitely that you could do things better. You said you started your own gym. What was, if you can, talk to the listeners about some of the things you had to go through with starting up the business. And I'm going to preface that by saying, I know being a business owner myself, there were probably more things involved than just training people. What other things came up that you maybe weren't aware of at that time?
Well, a lot of things was, the biggest pain in my behind was the city of Austin. Coming up with a business plan, because a lot of my clients were just so unhappy with the gym I was at. It was just all the stereotypical atrocities of gyms were in place there. Everybody was really rooting for me to hurry up and get this going. And I found a really nice guy who had some space, and he leased it to me. And so that was going really well. And I'd saved some money, so I had time to do the setup on it. And so I planned out nicely everything that I needed to have done. But what I didn't anticipate was the zoning and the code enforcement from the city of Austin. So we're in a commercial area on a street called Slaughter Lane, there's Taco Bell down the road. There's a bunch of Tex-Mex restaurants, et cetera, bars. And they wouldn't let me put a sign out for my gym.
Really?
They would let Planet Fitness put 11 signs out, but they wouldn't let me have one because it's a code violation. So they drove past those 11 signs and came to my door and handed me a $1,500 fine.
Are you serious?
Yeah, serious. And then it said, "Keep Austin Weird," which is the slogan they use to support small business. So I had to go argue against the entire city council, me against code enforcement, stuff like that. And I won. And I finally I have this big, enormous pickup truck, a big F-350, jacked up, big long thing. And I put Austin Fitness Center all over it, phone number, website. And they said, you have to take that off of your truck because it's an obvious sign and you're in violation. And I said, well, then every single pickup truck, from every plumber, electrician, and otherwise, every 18-wheeler has to be void of all graphics. And if this doesn't happen first, I'm suing you for millions of dollars. Or you can just leave me alone. So I won again, and that's it.
That's an amazing story.
That was probably the biggest unexpected thing.
That's an amazing story because, a lot of times in the media, you'll see where, business owners want to start business, but because of red tape, they have issues. And most people wouldn't have gone to argue against their city council and say, hey, here's why what I'm doing is right. So, if you can, what's one of the things that you learned from that experience? I know you're a physical in fact, and just in case you're just tuning in, we're talking to Andy Bruchey, owner of Complete Fitness Design in Austin, Texas, talking about business with him, personal fitness business. And this guy went and argued against the city council in his own city to make sure he could get his business up and running. Andy, what's one of the main things that you learned from that experience that maybe you could pass on to someone else?
Well, the biggest thing is, as far as the city, you can't pick who's going to be on your side. If you follow the rules and you do what you know is correct, you're going to run into opposition, whether it's valid or not. In this case, it was not valid. It was just selective enforcement. But, you can't let that trip you up. You have to say, no, I'm here and I have this vision. I have this mission, if you will. I'm just going to persevere on it. And it's as simple as that. And I was bound and determined not to fail. My wife was in grad school working on her PhD. I had an 8-month-old baby, my first child. And failure really wasn't an option unless I felt like working at a fast food joint. So, which wasn't going to work either. So I was very determined. So I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And my gym is a very small gym. When I say that I'm a personal trainer, it's just exactly that. It's not an impersonal trainer. I'm not somebody that makes sweeping statements about fitness or anything like that because that's not personal. And so my gym is run in that same manner. And it's kind of like the bar Cheers from that TV show. And people just kind of rallied around.
Wow.
And I have my core group, my core audience. And the biggest thing I think I learned out of that was know who your demographic is. Know exactly who your core demographic is. And not only do you market to them, but you have to service them. And you also better really know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, they're going to be really quickly finding you out and going elsewhere. And knowing what I was doing was what enabled me to keep going and keep building momentum.
So obviously you do know what you're doing. We've been talking about business. Let's talk about the personal fitness side, right? Because there's always someone who says, well, how do I lose more weight or how do I pack on more muscle? In what areas do you focus on at Complete Fitness Design?
All of it. So like you said in the preface, I work with PGA golfers when I work on their swing, whereas I don't play golf, but I understand body mechanics and I can see what muscles are tighter and balanced as they're swinging their golf club. That's just one example. Everything from just post-injury rehab. I also train 4 doctors. So we do things on a much more, I guess, just a different level than, I want to look good in my bikini, kind of thing. I want to lose 4 pounds, so I look good for the summer. So, we do some of that. That's the obligatory. But mostly what I try and do is something that's a little more intellectually stimulating, something that's a little bit more rewarding for me. And so it's more of an in-depth kind of approach. And that's how I also, I guess, could use this to answer your previous question was, what did I take away from all the stuff that I was learning? We're talking about the demographic is you have to figure out how you're going to be different. How are you going to differentiate yourself from all the competition? Because this city has got so many personal trainers, it's crazy. So how am I going to be different than them? And the reason that I was different was because I figured, well, I'm going to learn more than them. And I'm going to continue to learn and continue to be good-natured, laid back, but still deliver.
Wow.
Offer guaranteed results, things like that. So that's pretty much it.
That's pretty awesome. Andy Bruchey, just in case you're just tuning in, we've been talking to Andy Bruchey with Complete Fitness Design. He's the owner out in Austin, Texas. And he's been giving us some great information about starting business, not just starting a physical training business, but starting a business. And, this guy's story is amazing. And, Andy, I definitely, since we're about to wrap up, I'd like you to give the listeners a way to at least visit your website and get some more information about you, just in case they want to know.
Sure. You can go to CompleteFitnessDesign.com. That's my personal training website. The gym I own and founded almost 8 years ago. It's called the Austin Fitness Center. That's AustinFitnessCenter.com. Obviously, I run both businesses in the same location. And you can see me on Twitter at Austin Fitness HQ. And that's about it.
Cool.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.